Hello and welcome to this virtual education dealing with the topic of sales culture. My name is Philip. I'm currently a member of the ER-NST, a team which might not exist anymore when you watch this video because we have been merged with the ICX area to form the IGIP area, but I'm pretty sure that you can still profit from this webinar because it provides interesting and useful insights into the minds of sellers and into the selling area. So in this first chapter we will talk about what sales culture actually is. This might not seem super important, but it is actually a big part of introducing a sales culture, because only if you understand what sales culture is or what aspects sales culture yields, you will be able to introduce it well and sustainably. And then in the second part we will talk about why sales culture is important, so about the areas where it will impact your LC and your team positively. And then in part 3, chapter 3, we will talk about how to introduce a sales culture if you feel like you would have to start from the beginning, or if you have a lot of newies and you want to introduce them to the topic of sales culture. And then in chapter 4 we will talk about how to maintain a sales culture once you are at a certain point in this development. Okay, so let's get into it. On this slide I just wanted to show you the different aspects and areas of sales culture, because it is important to understand that sales culture is not really one thing. It's not your members sitting in the office all day. It's a lot about how your members work, how they understand themselves as sellers, how they approach their work and their tasks, and what outcome they produce. So we will look at the first aspect, which is performance, which is probably the major or one of the major aspects of an intact sales culture, or let's say it's the major result, because from all the things that your people or your members will do when they feel like they are or when they feel as sellers, performance will be the end result. So if they understand themselves as sellers, if they enjoy their work, if they feel like selling is something that is meaningful for them and that they really enjoy, then of course they will bring a great performance and yield great results. So to check if you actually are at a good point in this area, you can look at your number of calls, you can look at your number of company meetings, and you can look at the number of your raises, and all of these should go up once you implement the possibilities that will be shown to you later in this course, and once your sales culture is up and running. Moving along, one thing that will follow us through this first chapter is the difference to good team atmosphere. So I wanted to distinguish clearly between a good team atmosphere, which is just that you feel like your members are enjoying themselves as ISECers or enjoying themselves in your team, and sales culture. So in this case you can see that a good team atmosphere doesn't necessarily yield performance, but sales culture, a good sales culture does. So you can see that there's already a big difference between a good team atmosphere and sales culture in general. Let's look at the second aspect, which is fun. Again, in this case, fun is not the kind of fun that you would relate to socials or that you would relate to just having a good time with your team, but this is actually fun related to your work. So it means that your members actually enjoy calls and meetings. So your members will not sit in front of the phone being super nervous, taking a lot of time before they even pick up the phone, but they will actually think it's great. They will get excited when they find a good company. They will get excited when they have a good overview of the companies that they can call and that they can start, and they will get excited when they raise meetings. And part of this, which of course is never totally the case, but is that they consider their work free time. So they enjoy doing it. They are not only doing it because they are forced to or because you tell them to, but they actually do it because it's fun, because they like spending their time by selling things, selling ISAC things. And then, of course, if they do so, then you will not have to push them to make calls. They will do that deliberately, and this will be a lot more enjoyable for you as well. Moving along to the competition part of sales culture. Competition will follow us through this whole course because it is a very important aspect in very different areas of sales culture. But in this context, it means that your team enjoys competition because real sellers and salespeople, they enjoy winning and they want to win all the time. But to win, you actually need opportunities to win. So this means competition. It shouldn't be negative competition, but you should give them the opportunity to prove themselves through competitions and to be recognized as a good seller. So you should have internal competitions between your sellers, you should have internal competitions between teams, but you can of course especially participate in national competitions that your national support team provides to you. And to see if this part of sales culture is already introduced in your team, you can check if your team welcomes any possibility to prove themselves, and if they have a big motivation to participate in national events or general competition events such as national sales days. So the next area is ownership, and I'm telling you, this is the area that is most enjoyable for you as a team leader or as a VP. Because ownership means that your sellers have actually really understood that they are sellers, that they are responsible for selling things at ISAC, and they enjoy that. They enjoy that people from OCs, from other teams come to them when they have questions about how to sell things, about how to present things, because they understand that this is just their role and they are happy with that role. And one thing that will occur to you, or will occur if your members take ownership of being sellers, is that you will come to the office for whatever random task you have to do, and you will find your members sitting there calling, even if you haven't told them to do so. They will just do that because they enjoy it and because they know it's their work and their task. And your members will come to you and actually tell you about new sources of companies they found. They will tell you about new networks that they looked up, where they are great companies that they are going to call, which they just did without you telling them to. And then, of course, which is the top of the top, if this happens, you really know that you're at a very good point at this ownership state. Your members will come to you and ask you how they can improve as sellers. What opportunities, what possibilities, what are their weaknesses? They will ask you because they want to get better in their role which they have taken over. Again, big difference to a good team atmosphere, because ownership is really something of self-confidence and self-understanding, and that is what comes with good sales culture and not with a good atmosphere. So the next two aspects are a little related. The first one is collaboration. It means that your members will actively contribute to structure, strategy, and approach. That means that they will try to analyze the way that you operate with you together. So they will discuss, but also amongst them they will think about how things can be made better, and they will try to collaborate with you when you think about the strategy and the structure and give their impressions and ideas. And especially they will develop ideas and they will try to improve as a team altogether. And then, as I said, pretty much related to that is the proactivity aspect. Proactivity means that your members will by themselves start thinking about problems that you have in your team and will come to you to talk about these problems, to make suggestions. And what they will especially do is they will come to you and criticize you. And you have to welcome that, because it's awesome. It's the best thing that can possibly happen to you. Your member comes to you and criticizes. Because what does it mean? It means that your member actually thought about how you operate and about the things and the way that you do things. And this is great, because this member really took a proactive step to make your team a better team. And even if this criticism isn't perfect, or maybe it's even not useful in this situation, you have to welcome it and you have to thank your member for this criticism, and you have, after that, you have to actively appreciate him, to show him that you appreciated him coming to you, taking the courage to criticize you. I know this is often difficult for team leaders and for and especially for VPs. But your members have the right to criticize you, and they even have the obligation to criticize you, because they are also part of the team and they have to make the team better. So welcome it and appreciate it. And then, of course, your team members will push participation in national programs or conferences. So whenever there's a new opportunity coming around, like Pilot LC for a new product or anything in that direction, your members will actually ask you to participate in that, because they want to use it to make the team better, to make the selling better, to offer a better product range to your customers. And again, this proactivity is very different to a general good team atmosphere. That is something you only encounter if you have a good and standing sales culture in your team. Okay, that is already it for part 1. So I hope that out of this session you took the areas which are contained by sales culture in general, and that you have taken out ways to identify the state of sales culture in your team, and that you now have a good understanding, or at least some understanding, of what sales culture actually is. Okay, in the next chapter we will talk about why sales culture is important, and I hope to see you there again.